There is a person in your life who always knows exactly what to say when you are falling apart, who checks on you without being asked, who remembers the small things, the anniversary of your loss, the job interview you were nervous about, the argument that kept you up at night, who loves in a way that feels almost impossibly attentive and genuine. And if you look closely at that person, really closely, you will almost always find that they have been through something real, something that left a mark. This is not a coincidence. This is psychology. And once you understand why it happens, you will never look at deeply caring people the same way again. Let us start with what happens inside a person when they experience significant pain. When you go through something that truly breaks you open, something that strips away your sense of safety and leaves you completely exposed and vulnerable, your brain does something remarkable. It does not just record the pain, it records every detail surrounding the pain. The feeling of being invisible when you needed to be seen, the silence when you desperately needed someone to speak, the absence of a hand when you needed one to hold. The brain files all of this away, not just as memory, but as emotional knowledge, a deep, embodied understanding of what it feels like to be without the things a human being most needs. And that knowledge changes you. Not always right away, sometimes it takes years, but slowly and quietly, it builds inside you an emotional vocabulary that most people simply do not have. You know what rock bottom feels like from the inside. You know the specific weight of grief at 2 a.m. You know the particular loneliness of being surrounded by people who do not actually see you. You know these things, not because someone described them to you, but because you lived them. And that lived knowledge becomes the foundation of an extraordinary capacity for empathy. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth, and it is one of the most quietly profound phenomena in all of human psychology. The research, pioneered by psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, shows that a significant number of people who experience serious adversity report not just recovering, but genuinely growing in ways they could not have imagined before the pain. Greater appreciation for life, deeper relationships, increased personal strength, and perhaps most powerfully, a dramatically expanded capacity for compassion toward others who are suffering. The mechanism behind this is both simple and profound. When you have been hurt and you have survived it, you understand at the deepest possible level that suffering is real, that it matters, and that the presence of another human being in the middle of it can make the difference between barely surviving and actually making it through. You do not take that lightly. You do not scroll past someone's pain or offer empty platitudes because you remember exactly how hollow those felt when you were the one drowning. Instead, you show up, fully, because you know from the inside what it means when someone does and what it costs when someone does not. There is also something important happening at the neurological level. Research shows that people who have processed significant emotional pain often develop heightened activity in the neural circuits associated with empathy and emotional attunement. The experience of pain, when worked through rather than suppressed, literally rewires the brain toward greater sensitivity to the emotional states of others.
Your nervous system learns to read a room, to feel what is unspoken, to notice the person standing at the edge of the party who is not quite okay, even when they are smiling. Not because you are trying to, but because your system was trained by experience to pick up on exactly those signals. And there is a deeply human motivation underneath all of this too. People who have been hurt often carry a quiet and powerful intention that is rarely spoken out loud but almost always present. The intention that nobody around them will ever have to feel the way they once felt if they can possibly help it. This is not martyrdom. This is not people-pleasing. This is something older and more elemental than that. It is the transformation of personal pain into protective love. The decision, often made unconsciously, to take the worst thing that ever happened to you and turn it into the most powerful thing you give to the world. But I want to say something important here, because this conversation would be incomplete without it. Carrying this kind of empathy is not always easy. People who have been hurt and who have developed this depth of care often give in ways that are not always reciprocated.
They feel other people's pain almost as if it were their own. They can absorb the weight of everyone around them while quietly carrying their own history underneath it all. And sometimes, the very openness that makes them so extraordinary also makes them vulnerable to being taken for granted, to overgiving, to loving people who have not yet done the work of learning to receive love carefully. If this is you, I want you to hear something. Your capacity to care the way you do is not a weakness. It is not naivety. It is one of the most hard-won and genuinely rare qualities a human being can possess. But you are also allowed to protect it. You are allowed to give your extraordinary care to people who are worthy of it. You are allowed to receive as generously as you give. The pain you survived does not obligate you to save everyone. It simply gave you the ability to understand them in a way most people never will. And if someone in your life loves you with this kind of depth, with this kind of attention and presence and quiet knowing, understand what you are holding. That person built their capacity to love you out of the hardest material.
They learn to see you so clearly because they once were not seen. They learn to stay because they know what it feels like when someone leaves. They learn to care so precisely because they once desperately needed that precision and did not always find it. The people who have been hurt the most and who chose to turn that hurt into love rather than hardness, they are not broken. They are among the most complete human beings you will ever meet. And the world is quietly held together by the invisible and tireless work of their caring. If this video described someone you know or something you recognize in yourself, leave a comment below. You are not alone in this, and you never were. Subscribe for more psychology that finally names the things that have always been true. I will see you in the next one.